7 seconds. This is the time it takes for us to form a first impression. And as we get to know people, we build on these first impressions based on observations and interpretations of the behaviors that we see. Is that person interesting? Dull? Are they hardworking? Lazy? Attentive? Careless? Are they collaborative or antagonistic? We make decisions based on these interpretations, whether to connect with someone at a networking event, whether to hire them, whether to trust them with a key task, whether they're ready for promotion, management, and sometimes when it's time to terminate their employment because of their failure to take on key development points. But what happens when our interpretations are wrong? That there's another reason for the behaviors that we see, something invisible, something which, with a few adjustments, could be worked around. What could we be missing out on? So I've spent a lifetime observing and trying to work out people, trying to understand them. I've spent over 20 years bringing about change in organizations, and for the last 11 years I've worked at Capco, a global management consultancy where I've specialized in business transformation and data management. I get to turn data into knowledge and knowledge into strategies for change. I solve problems for a living, and I love it. But 4 years ago, it was a bit of a different story. I was struggling with anxiety and I was in survival mode. My peers had all been promoted past me, and there was a question about my performance. My feedback was always the same. Great at delivery, but need to do better when it comes to people. Now, anyone who knows me will probably tell you I can be a bit stubborn. And if given a task, I go all in. So I put myself on social boot camp. Now, I should also tell you that I've struggled with a social anxiety for as long as I can remember. I fear crowds and people, and I seem to have a very special talent for rubbing people up the wrong way. As a colleague once commented, I may not be great at resolving conflict, but I sure am great at causing it. I didn't want to be difficult. So for 7 years, I tried everything: self-help books, training, life coaching, therapy. I self-analyzed people. I self-analyzed my interactions with people and tried to decode their behaviors. I had a playbook of what to do and what not to do in different situations. But the harder I tried, the more I struggled. It made no sense. People made no sense. They could be incredibly frustrating. And they just didn't seem to get me. Even my therapist didn't get me, and I fell out with most of them. And then in July 2017, I found my answer. I am autistic. My brain is wired differently. I am neurodivergent. And there's other people who are neurodivergent, people with ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, bipolar, OCD, and other neurodevelopmental differences. In fact, at least 1 in 10 people are neurodivergent. And our diversity, our neurodiversity, is as critical as other forms of diversity like gender, race, sexuality, class. Now, I didn't always realize this. The journey to my answer began with my son. He was diagnosed as autistic in 2012, 2015, kind of, a couple of years before me, just after he'd started school. And he'd struggled in the classroom environment, and they'd struggled with him. I remember he took me in to the classroom, and it was around Chinese New Year. And he proudly told me that he was born in the year of the ox. And he made such a good ox because he was bad. And an ox could be bad. This was how they made him feel. The school told us that he'd be a scholarship student if it weren't for those behavioral issues. And we challenged the school. We tried to get them to take on adjustments that we'd been told would make a difference. But they resisted. And just a few months later, we were asked to remove him from the school. 6 months after that, we were asked to remove him from the next school. 3 schools by the age of 6. It was tough. There are no words to tell a 5-year-old that his school doesn't want him anymore. But my bulldog spirit paid off. He's now in a school where he's understood. In fact, he turns 10 years this week, and he's thriving. He showed me what is possible when you are true to yourself in an environment which understands you, and you are supported to succeed. I realized I didn't need to change who I was because I'm not difficult. I am different. Sure, I'm a source of conflict, but my teams, they're never going to struggle with groupthink because I am not difficult. I am different. I see the big picture. I push people to develop their ideas further. I make them better because I am not difficult. I am different. I am loyal. I'm hardworking. And I go the extra mile because I am not difficult. I am different. And there is a value in my difference. The day that I was diagnosed, I cried for the years of struggling, for thinking that I wasn't enough and that I didn't have what it takes to be successful. But my diagnosis changed things. I realized I didn't need to change who I was. I needed to change the world around me. So I told people I'm autistic and started to focus on my strengths. I took my playbook and I gave it to the most sociable member of my team. I referred to them as my social bridge. I'd finally mastered the art of consulting. I'd outsourced my sociability. It paid off. Since then, perceptions of me at Capco and elsewhere have changed. My anxiety levels have come right down. And I got that promotion. In fact, in April this year, I was asked to take on the team of 50 people. Something I never thought would be possible. And it's not without its challenges, believe me. I'm still trying to work it out because one of the greatest challenges that I now have is believing in my own success. Adjusting to the change in the perceptions of other people around me. The other challenge that I often face is finding the strength to tell my team when I'm struggling, when I need adjustments and support to meet the required objectives, asking without shame or fear of judgment. And this is something that I want for other neurodivergent people. It's something that I want for my son. In 2 years' time, he starts high school. But currently, there are no schools in our area that are able to fully help to support his needs or help him fulfill his academic potential. A potential limited by a lack of environments where he is acceptable. And he's not the only one who's struggling. So many other neurodivergent people are struggling in a world which doesn't understand them and with barriers to their success. And this needs to change. I want to live in a world where every neurodivergent person is able to make the most of their strengths, where they are diagnosed before they start struggling, where schools are able to support the needs of all students, and where flexible options for working and learning means that everyone can find an option that works for them. I want environments designed with the needs of the neurodivergent in mind. In short, I want a world where the neurodivergent are valued. At CAPCO, I went on to establish a neurodiversity network, and we're working on our strategy for ensuring neurodiversity inclusion in the workplace. And last year, I set up a website, Me.Decoded, where the neurodivergent and allies can come to share their experiences and their stories so that they could have a voice, so that they could be understood. Now, what I've started to learn is that there are so many people who are struggling in silence, from senior MDs and entrepreneurs to young people and students struggling in silence, and the words that they use to describe themselves are weird, stupid, outsider, difficult, because this is what the world has told them. But they are not difficult. They are different, talented individuals who have so much to offer this world. Now, I've heard many reasons as to why neurodiversity and embracing it is difficult. Cost, complexity, time, and my personal favorite, not wanting preferential treatment for individuals when they need to consider the needs of the collective. The reality is that many of the adjustments for neurodiversity, they don't cost much at all. And when you remove the barriers for the neurodivergent, you remove them for everyone. And this has a business benefit with increased productivity, innovation, and creativity. Something that is being realized by many organizations already, including SAP, GCHQ, CAPCO, and many others. But we need more organizations to put neurodiversity on their agenda, so that the neurodivergent don't need to struggle in silence. We need organizations who are willing to be open-minded, to find out more about what the neurodivergent struggle with, and be prepared to make adjustments to work around this so that they can start to realize their strengths. And it's something that each and every one of you in this room can help with, by starting a neurodiversity conversation, talking about what you've learned today, sharing it on social media, asking each other what works for you, what doesn't. If everybody just had together and said, this is how to work with me, we could take the guesswork out of teamwork and make it fit for all. It's time for us to question our first impressions, to be open to new ways of working and changes to environments, to focus on potential and what is possible instead of what is lacking. For the neurodivergent, a small change can make the world of difference. It starts with a conversation. It starts with you. Thank you.
Bravo!
Yeah.